everybody, and welcome back to the show, After School with the Lawsons. Today's special guest came in third place on season 14 of America's Got Talent. He is the self-proclaimed Cripple Threat of Comedy and also voted this year's sexiest man alive, Mr. Ryan Niemiller.
Well, in all fairness, it's only February. There's some more sexy men that can pop up.
Well, we'll see.
I also love, that was very smart of you to do the self-proclaimed Cripple Threat.
Yeah.
When sometimes people will just say he's the Cripple Threat of Comedy. I'm like, who says that? Who said that?
Yeah, who said that? Who came up with that? It was
wait, this is news to me.
That's awesome.
You're calling me what?
Yeah. Well, dude, thanks so much for dropping by.
Absolutely.
I know you got a lot of busy stuff going on. You got a show tonight.
Yes.
So what do we got going on tonight? Is it like a charity event?
Yeah, I'm doing a charity event. I'm really bad at just remembering anything because I have a 9-month-old son, so my brain is warped. We could talk about that in a little bit. But basically, the charity, it's a really cool organization. They sort of raise funds and awareness and stuff for like infant loss.
Awesome.
So they kind of help guide people, because when something that I can't even imagine something like that happening.
For sure.
And then you have to plan funerals and plan all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So what this group does, they sort of help people through that grieving process and help them with the,
It's good that there's stuff out there like
the technical stuff you got to do, because you just went through a terrible loss, and now you got to plan a funeral.
Yeah.
Now you got to plan so they help with a lot of that kind of stuff to go through.
So your son, 9 months old?
Yes, 9 months old.
Man,
he's fresh.
Yeah,
I haven't ruined him yet. That's how fresh he is.
It's coming.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But so far, I'm crushing it. He loves me. He thinks I'm hilarious.
What do you think's going to happen when he grows up and sees dad's stand up?
It's going to be interesting because like a lot of my hour now is about him.
Okay, that's good.
And he's he's the best thing I'll ever do. I love him so much. He's my favorite. He's my best friend already, and he's 9 months. He doesn't know what's going on. But a lot of my stand up is, I won't spoil everything, but is sort of talking about how no one tells you the full truth of what it's going to be like to be a parent. They kind of, you're going to be really tired.
Yeah.
They kind of sugarcoat it a little bit, but but it's great. And kind of what I'm talking about is I love my son, but he's an inconsiderate asshole. He's a real dick.
Yeah, I got three assholes laying around here.
He's just, he's just if any of my friends treated me like him.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of it's it's tongue in cheek. It's obviously done with love, but it's man, he is really just cramping my style right now. So hopefully he'll, just through other things that we do in our life, he'll kind of think it's cool.
That's awesome, man. I could. Do you ever like when you're on the road a lot? How many shows you got going on right now?
So for this is a relatively short run. It's a 3-night. So I did one last night, one tonight, and I don't know when you put this up, but we don't need to.
So this will be going up on Tuesday.
Okay.
But my next question is, do you ever get homesick? I guess
I get homesick constantly.
Dude, me too.
So it's a weird conversation to have with people because I know I'm blessed enough that I get to do a really cool job that a lot of people wish they could do. I don't take that for granted whatsoever. I'm very blessed. I get to travel a lot of cool places. I grew up dirt poor. We were trailer park kids. We did not go on. Grandma's house was a vacation.
Oh, gotcha.
It wasn't we got to go to Disney World once a year or whatever, and no shade against anyone who got to do that. That just wasn't our life. Right. So I get to travel to all these cool places I never would have dreamed of when I was a kid. But I am also a huge homebody. Yeah. I work hard, so I have a lot of cool stuff at my house that I want to, we were talking about, I have 4,000 video games.
That's awesome.
I want to play those games.
What is the coolest thing? What is your just prized possession?
Probably my complete box copy of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. That was my favorite. That was my favorite game growing up. It's still my favorite game of all time. That was one that I was willing to shell the extra money to get.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It probably cost you.
Relatively speaking, I have stuff that's worth more. Yeah. But, it's good $200.
That's a classic.
When I got it, so
that's cool. It
was well worth it. And, I like to be at my house. Yeah. I work hard, so I have this cool stuff, and I want to use that cool stuff. And my wife and I, we kind of butt heads a little bit about it because what she does for fun, she likes to travel. Oh, that's her fun thing.
She's like, you get all the fun stuff.
Yeah, and it's tough because I never want to complain too much because she wishes she got to travel. She's an elementary school teacher, which is a noble job, but it's very regimented. You have to be there, you know, all the time. And a lot of times when she gets time off and we like, oh, we should go travel. And I'm like, I just traveled. I want to be home. I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be in hotels right now.
Yeah.
So we make it work though. We do it's all compromise, you know.
Yeah. Well, I just got back from Sarasota, and I was actually supposed to fly out the following morning, but I texted my wife and I was like, my stomach's upset. Like I'm kind of ready to be home. And she's like, well, change your ticket, like get a ticket and come home today, you know? And that's what I did. I flew home at like 11 o'clock. I don't know what it is. It's just, you know, you're out of your element. So it's like, you're not comfortable. You don't see your kids. You're not with your wife. You know, it's fun and games, you know, it's great.
Yeah.
But
It would be so much more fun to be on the road if I thought my wife was a bitch and my son was a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
But like, I love my wife.
Yeah.
And I love my son.
Yeah.
And I love my dog.
Yeah.
And I love my video game. Like,
I just wish
wanna
they
be
loved
home.
us, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, their opinions of me is not irrelevant right now. But like, yeah, it's one of those things. And I've always been that way. My manager thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But like, if she's like ever like booking like my flights and stuff, my return flight is always 4:30 in the morning.
Yep.
5:30. The earliest you can get me on a plane
Same.
is what I want to be home because I'm not going to sleep anyway because I'm excited to go home now.
Yeah,
so just get me on a plane. We'll get home and then I'm back to my like. That's the life I really appreciate. I love what I do.
Yeah.
But that's like what's important to me. That's what I care about.
Well, I'm glad you love what you do because you're really good at what you do.
Thank you.
You know, and I've enjoyed you on America's Got Talent. You know, I've been following you on Instagram, and I think what you're doing is great. And you know, just spreading laughter, and I'm all for that. You know what I'm saying? But the Cripple Threat, where did that come from?
It actually had nothing to do with comedy originally. So where that name came from, my first real passion was professional wrestling. That is what.
So that was your wrestling name.
That was going to be the wrestling name. Yeah. So you know, my comedy background. When I went to college, my degree's in theater. I went to Indiana State.
Okay.
I have a degree in theater with an acting emphasis. I picked that major because it was going to help me with my pro wrestling training.
Awesome.
I wanted to be authentic. Because I'm not, you know, you can probably tell by looking at me, I'm not exactly what you call a super athlete.
I mean, I'd be scared of you.
But for different reasons. I can get you with insults. That's different. I can hurt you emotionally. But so like I've always been blessed with self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like I know what I'm bringing to the table.
That's
you
cool.
know, like growing up with a disability, people always mean well. They would say things like, well, like I played Little League baseball for a few years, and I was good at baseball in the way that a 7-year-old is good at baseball.
Yeah.
If you know the rules, you're one of the top 10 players in the league. Just knowing what's happening.
No one to run in a square, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and then people would be like, oh, well, if you work really hard, you could play in the majors. And even as a 7-year-old, I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. That's not going to happen. Like, what do you mean? Like, so like, I've always had the awareness of like, you know, and this is what I'll tell people if I ever do, you know, because I do like some, you know, speaking at schools and that type of stuff too.
That's good.
Is I always try to like, you need to be realistic. Like, like if you have a disability, you can't do everything. That's not how, if you don't have a disability, you can't do everything. The key is trying a lot of new stuff and figuring out what you're good at.
Yeah.
And then attacking that, what you're passionate about. So for me, I thought it was going to be pro wrestling. I fell in love with it. You know, it's what gave me the passion, like watching it on television, going to live events and like seeing that, like feeling that energy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like, oh God, like I want to feel that. I want to give to people what they're giving to me right now. I tried to train. I went to a small school in Southern Indiana.
Wow.
That a couple buddies of mine ran. They basically had their own ring, and they were independent wrestlers around the area. I did it for about 3 months. My body just couldn't take it. It was so hard. It wasn't my arms; it was my back.
Yeah.
It just really took a toll.
I guarantee it.
But then, like, luckily through doing theater, I really enjoyed performing that way.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd already come up with this Cripple Threat name.
That's awesome.
And I was like, well, I don't want to get rid of the name.
Yeah.
So I just made it the Cripple Threat of Comedy.
That's cool.
They're doing stand-up.
I think it is so clever. I think it's hysterical. That's awesome. Who's your favorite wrestler?
Chris Jericho.
Okay.
He's my favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
So
he's aged quite a bit. I've seen him.
I mean, he's in his early 50s. He's been around
I know,
for a long
but
time.
it's crazy. Like, I remember like WCW night, like Nitro and Thursday Night Thunder and stuff like that. Was you a Raw guy, or was you?
I was more a WWF / E guy person. I watched it all. Like I would consume as much as I could. So yeah, it was a real full circle moment. Like we'll get real nerdy with it for a second. So apologize to anybody who's not a big wrestling fan, but we're about to get into it.
Yes.
The actual and I've told him this too. The the pivotal moment that actually made me want to be a wrestler and thus a performer. So we grew up pretty poor, but like once a year, usually it was my birthday present / part of Christmas present, I would get to go to a wrestling event. And usually we went up to Chicago because I grew up in Northwest Indiana. I got to go to a Monday Night Raw. It was August 9th, 1999, which happened to be, they were running this thing where there was this countdown clock that was going down, and it was one of the biggest Y2K. Debuts ever. It was the Y2J. It was Chris Jericho's debut, and I get goosebumps just thinking about like being in there and like hearing that reaction, and being all that. So like that was what really made me want to be a pro wrestler and a performer. Now, when I got to do AGT, we're fast forwarding many years now. When you make it to the finals, or I was in the semifinals at this point, but they start planning it. I had kind of done some pro wrestling style marketing of myself during the show. I embraced the Cripple Threat stuff. I call my fan base Club Nub, which is very much like it's like, oh, you call your fans, the click or, whatever it was. Yeah. And they sort of asked me because they had this idea of like, when you make the finals, they always like pair you up with like a celebrity of some sort. So if you're a singer, they bring in another, like a famous singer, and you do a duet or whatever. Since I had done all this pro wrestling stuff, and for the comedians, that's usually really bad because they'll just like, oh, you're going to do a funny bit with another comedian. It just doesn't work. You can't duet comedy with, I can't tell jokes with Jerry Seinfeld on stage. It's weird. But I did all this pro wrestling stuff. So they asked me like, oh, who's your favorite wrestler of all time? And I was like, well, Chris Jericho. And they contacted him and they kind of showed him my stuff and he liked it. And so he agreed to come in. And we filmed this whole sketch and stuff, and he was really cool. He was like, they came up with some ideas, but non-wrestling people don't know how to write wrestling stuff, so it was really kind of corny and hokey. And Chris was like, "No, let us do it. Like, he's a comedian. I'm sure he can work on his feet." So we like improv'd it all. Really, basically. I mean, we had small guidelines that they wanted, but we basically just improv'd all the stuff. Yeah, it was really well received. And then we just hit it off so well that we became buddies.
That's so cool.
So like later that year, I had Thanksgiving at his house. No way. When he works for AEW now, so whenever they're like near where I live, he gets me tickets. And
that's awesome.
So dude. It's like 41, almost 42-year-old me is like, oh, I have this cool friend who does interesting stuff, and he's like, but like 16-year-old me is just constantly losing
deep
his
down
shit.
Inside. Yeah, it's like, so, I'm going to Chris's house.
So like not only is he just like a cool dude that I'm happy to be friends with now, but like I've let him know how pivotal he was specifically to making a lot of this happen. That's awesome, even if he didn't directly, I didn't become the wrestler like I thought it was going to be then. Right. But all of these things I can paint to like basically that moment being at the, at the time Rosemont Horizon. That's crazy. In Rosemont, Illinois.
That's awesome. So what even got you into comedy? Like what made you decide that's what you wanted to do,
I always liked stand-up as a kid. So I told this story on AGT. I'll kind of give the Cliff Notes version. So growing up, my dad was a pretty hardcore alcoholic. Very, that's kind of what he did. That's gotta be rough. And never physically abusive, but very verbally, he was just always volatile, always just, you never knew what it was going to be anytime you came home. But one of the things that really leveled him out was stand-up. He loved watching stand-up specials on television, and that's when he would kind of be like the nice version of drunk dad. Yeah. He'd let you stay up late and you could, sit with them when you're watching. Wow. And a lot of the stuff he liked is stuff that I wouldn't necessarily think is the funniest thing in the world now, but he loved like watching like Gallagher specials. And there was a Dana Carvey special that aired on Comedy. I think it was the only comedy special they had for like 4 years that was just always on at any time of the day. It was
you just turn on the channel and it's like one of those things that just play.
Yeah, it was Comedy Central's version of Shawshank, where it was just always on no matter what. And he used to quote all the time, and I remember having those positive memories of like, oh, this is when dad's fun, And so like I kind of realize the power of comedy at that point, that like, oh, it can turn my dad, who's kind of a loud asshole, into like this guy who's just like, he's having a good time and he's quoting stuff and he's having fun. And then also just, combining that, and I just sort of done this naturally, having a disability and growing up in a town of like 3,000 people, that could be a bad combination. Yeah. I was the only person who looked like me. There wasn't, a lot of diversity of any kind, let alone this. Right. But I learned pretty early that if I could make people laugh about it, if I made the jokes first, it was mostly for survival. But like I don't want to brag because it's high school, so who gives a shit? But like I was really popular because I was the funny kid.
Well, I'm glad he was, because I wasn't.
But and because I never wanted to be made fun of, I was able to be the funny guy, but I never made fun of other people. I was never mean-spirited. I would make jokes about myself or just be silly or whatever. And I kind of realized, like, oh, like, this always sounds more sinister than I mean it to. But if you can make people laugh, you can make people do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, like if you feel good, they'll be like, oh, yeah, we'll give you that opportunity. Yeah. I'll give you that job. I'll give you that, That's cool. I'll go on a date with you, whatever it might be, just make me laugh. And
it's like a personality. It's a great personality. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then when I started doing the theater and stuff, and I enjoyed doing theater, but there's too many moving parts for me. Like I'm also a bit of just an attention whore. And when you're doing this big ensemble thing, like I always had fun, but it's like, no, I want to tell my story. Shakespeare's had his story told many
Long
times.
Time,
I want to tell my dick jokes, and so it sort of just transitioned from there.
Yeah. Talking about America's Got Talent, how was that process? I could not imagine just, how did you even start? Like, did they reach out to you, or is that something you reached out to them?
So it was a bit of a saga for me. So it was a 5-year process for me.
Wow.
Before I actually got it. And so the first time that I did it, I got to do so they do 2 types of auditions. They do the cattle call ones, which everyone knows, like we're coming to your you show up and then you show up and then you get seen, and then if they like you, they stick around, they do that. Or they do ones where basically you're doing that too, but you just get a slot. So instead of just having to show up at 7 a.m. and wait all day, at 1:30 we want to see you.
Okay.
So, and the only reason I got that is that Taylor Williamson, who's another comedian, he got second place on the show, like season 11, maybe somewhere around there. Might have been actually a little before that. And since we're buddies, basically the show, as a favor to him, we're like, oh yeah, we'll see your buddy.
Yeah.
And I'm at this point, I'm maybe 8 years into comedy, something like that, 7, 8 years in. And what happens in comedy for a lot of people at that level, I was crushing it, but I hadn't moved up to this level yet. I was basically, I was a feature. So I wasn't headlining clubs. I was doing that middle spot, and I'm a hard to follow feature.
Yeah.
And I'm getting real cocky about it. I'm just like, oh, I'm so fun. Like, I'm crushing. Yeah. Headliners can't follow me now. And then when you do that audition, like, AGT sets are 2 minutes, maybe 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes, depending on what they approve. I feel like that'd be a lot
of pressure too,
Yeah, but I was too dumb and cocky to know that there should have been pressure on me.
Yeah,
I barely prepared. Because I'm like, I kill every comedy show I do. Of course I can show up and do this, do 90 seconds. I do an hour.
Right.
I can do 90 seconds. I'm going to kill it. I went up there. I stumbled on I totally just ate shit. It was a bad audition. Because I didn't.
Was that the first time?
This was the very first time I did it. So you go in there. I'm expecting like there's going to be like this crowd, because like a lot of comedy is playing off a crowd.
Right.
What they actually do for those, a lot of times, there's maybe someone else in there, but like I was performing in front of a producer and a cameraman, and that's it.
Yeah, that would be a little.
No one else in the room, and I did not know that was going to be how it worked. So that messes with your timing and your like. If anyone's a comedian and you want to try to audition for AGT, I will give the advice right now: when you're doing your auditions, whether you're sending in a tape, whatever it is, you have, even if it feels weird to you, pretend that the place is just packed. Pretend there's thousands of people in the room and you're playing to that. Because comedians, if you're good at it, you are aware of what your surroundings are. So it's like, I'm not going to pretend I'm at Madison Square Garden if I'm in a dive bar with 3 drunks who don't know it's comedy night. You're going to go in with a different energy to try to win them.
Yeah, for sure.
With AGT, they want to see what you're going to look like on TV.
Wow.
So you have to pretend you're on TV, even if you're just in a weird room with 2 people.
Man.
I didn't know that at the time, so I blew this audition. And I ate some humble pie. I needed to at that point in my career. Yeah. And I kind of had this thought in my head. I was like, okay, if I ever get the opportunity again, I know what not to do. But hey, okay, things happen. It's done. We fast forward, 3-4 years at this point. One of their the producers kind of reached out to me, because they also, scout's not the right word, but if they see some acts that like, oh, maybe they would be good on it, well, you want to come in and audition.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't mean you're getting on the show. There's no guarantees whatsoever, because you could go and blow the audition again, and it doesn't matter. But they're like, oh, this might be an interesting story. You have some talent. You want to come out? So I did that. I did another in person. This one was in Milwaukee. I had a really good one this time. I didn't quite make it. I found out after the fact I was kind of one of the last cuts. This sounds horrible, but basically they already had another white male handicap comic. They went with Samuel J. Comroe the year before me. He has Tourette's, and he's a good buddy of mine. He's hilarious. Sam's a great friend of mine. He didn't steal anything from me, but they're not going to put, 8 of the same type of archetype on the show. It's a talent show, but it's a TV show.
Right.
They want to have diverse acts. They want to have different. That's why it's not all singers or all dancers. Like they want to have a lot of different stuff. He just happened to be that role that year.
Did he go up before you, or was you following him, or how did that work?
I don't know how he did his audition. I have no idea. Like he wasn't at the same thing I was, for sure. They do multiple, and who knows how he did it. That's his story to tell. I don't know. but I found that out after the fact. Like again, he didn't steal anything from it. I want to make it very clear. That's not how the show works. But he was just that role, and he got 4th place. He did great. He had awesome. Great run. He's got a great career now. He's awesome. He's hilarious. But I felt good. Like if I didn't make it that time, it wasn't because I wasn't prepared. It wasn't because I shit the bed. I did good.
Yeah.
Next year, so in between there, what actually got me the show was a video audition, and I had filmed a syndicated TV show that aired on Fox for a little bit. My buddy Steve Hofstetter put it together. It was called Laughs, and it aired on Fox in certain markets. I was one of the first people who filmed it, and I was their first one that really had like a viral presence. My set went. He put the full set up on. He owned Comedy Juice, so on their Facebook page, and it got like 2 million views pretty fast. Which for me, that was the most I had gotten on anything. So I recontacted AGT myself this time, and I was like, "Hey, since last year, this happened."
Right.
And I showed them that video, and they were like, "Oh yeah, do that." That's what we want. So that video is what got me.
That's awesome.
The audition, and then they fly you in, and you do the actual in person, and then it kind of just all went from there.
Did you feel the pressure at that? Like when did you see like the judges? Obviously, like whenever you're looking at them, like are the lights too bright, or can you see them pretty well?
You can see them pretty well.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that I always have to. I feel I have to give caveats. I was not nervous at all.
That's good.
Because like I do realize like I'm glad it took me the extra 4 or 5 years to get it. I was not ready for what was going to happen in hindsight, you know. If I would have got it the first time, I would have blown it.
Yeah.
But I was a much better comic at that point. I knew what this was. I came in with the right attitude. So and I tell this to people all the time. I'm not a very confident guy in almost every aspect of my life. Except for stand-up.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, when I started stand-up, I was like, this is going to work out eventually. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to be. I'm really good at this. This is going to work.
Yeah.
Now, everything else, you talked to me 10 years ago, I'm never going to get married. I'll never be a dad. Like, all that was in like, no one will ever love me. But, like, I'm going to be really funny. Right, that was always a thing. So when I got there, that was sort of my, like, reward for sticking with it. And, my career was littered with sleeping in my car because I couldn't afford a hotel and doing I talk about those dive bars for 3 drunks who didn't know it was comedy night. That was what I did.
Yeah.
I was battle tested.
Yeah.
So when you get to go to AGT and I'm in a room where there's 3,000 people and I'm on television in front of millions.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
No, that's a crowd that's like excited to see you. So I'm like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
Quote unquote easy relative to. You try to get a drunk in Iowa who's mad that you turned off the football game to like you.
To watch this guy?
That's hard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
For this, they want, like, AGT, like that crowd, they want you to do well.
Yeah.
Like, when you walk up on stage, they're not like, I hope this guy sucks. Like, no, they're very... So as long as you just bring what you can do, they're going to love you. So where the nerves really hit me, so, like, like the judges, like, I knew Howie would like me because, he's really supportive of the comics. My season was the one with Gabrielle Union and Julianne Hough. That was their only season they did, so there was no real template for like Heidi Klum famously hates the comics. So like I had nothing like that to go off there. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna be funny. And Simon, he wasn't intimidating to me personally because I know he doesn't know shit about comedy.
Yeah,
like he's a music guy.
Right.
And so I'm like, he doesn't know. Like as long as I'm confident, like he doesn't know how to write jokes. Like, that's not his world. So I'm not worried about him. I'm just going to do my thing. And where the nerves really hit. So I do the set. It goes amazingly. You know, they edited it a little strangely, but I got like 3 standing ovations. Like
awesome.
It couldn't have gone any better. And then as soon as I got off stage, that's when I almost threw up. Because like, not everyone gets to have that moment where I can pinpoint the exact 8 minutes where my life changed forever.
That's awesome.
Not most people don't get to have that moment. I have it on tape. You know, exactly. Wild. And like the second I got off stage, I was like, oh fuck. Like, because like it's hard to explain, but like, you know, I was basically, my personality was the starving artist for, you know, 12, 13 years of comedy. And when your whole thing is like, man, as soon as I get an opportunity, that's like, I'm so good, but when I get that opportunity, I'm going to show everybody.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what you build yourself on.
Right.
And now I got to show everybody. And I was like, oh, fuck, now what do I do? Because I got the thing that I had been trying to do. Now what? So like, it really hit me in that moment, but I didn't get it because like right after that, they're like, okay, come with us. We're going to film this. We're going to film, because they don't know how good you're going to do.
Yeah.
And they kind of went like, oh shit, that guy was great.
Yeah.
We got to film this, We have your mom waiting out in the lobby. We're going to do a thing. You're going to walk out there. You're going to give her, you know, so it's like, I didn't have time to really think about it.
It's just on the go, like go.
So, and then I feel like I'm talking a lot, but
no, you're good.
But I'm the guest. Fuck you.
Yeah.
No.
You're good, dude.
And then the other really weird aspect about that is, so they filmed, you know, the auditions are always, it's pre-taped ahead of time. They filmed that for my year. They filmed it in March. My episode didn't air until early June.
Oh, wow.
And this was back when they still did judge cuts. That was taped too. So I knew at that point, obviously, I'd already made it to the live shows. I was there, you know. Yeah. But how it works is like, until it actually airs on TV, it didn't happen. And you have pretty strict, like, no, you can't go on Reddit and tell people that you did. You got to keep it to yourself.
That's got to be hard.
So it's such a weird feeling to know that your life is going to change in 3 months.
Yeah.
But you can't say.
Did time slow down for you?
Oh, so much. Because I'm still doing these shows. I'm still doing the sleeping in my car. Because you're not making any tangible money because it hasn't aired yet. So I can't talk to comedy clubs and be like, oh, trust me, in 3 months, this is going to be awesome. You know,
you're going to want me here.
Me, you know, but so it's like, I'm still just doing doing these little gigs and just kind of, but like, I know this is about to happen.
That's awesome.
And you're just kind of sitting there and bless my mom's heart. I was really worried about her because she was there for all of it. And my mom is such a proud, doting mother. But I had to be like, Mom, listen, you have to shut the fuck up.
Do not say nothing.
You can't go on Facebook and be proud of your son right now. You
Tag
have
you
to,
in it.
Yeah, basically, shut your mouth. You can't say anything. And I know it was very difficult for her, but my mom, she held, like, now she'll like, can I talk about it? I'm like, yes. And she's like, just 1,000 things that she had saved or whatever.
Man.
Yeah, so I was very proud of her for that. But yeah,
That's crazy.
It was a surreal experience.
When you auditioned and you came off stage, you said you were feeling sick. Do you find out right then if you make it or not? Or
yes and no. It's a weird thing because, you know, while they're doing the audition, they film a bunch of auditions. And just because you did an audition doesn't mean you make it to television.
Wow. Just
because you get all yeses, because you find out you got the yeses, like that happens. You know, the judges tell you after you do your set, you know, it's a yes from us. You know, you got 4 yeses. Just because you get 4 yeses doesn't mean you make it to the actual show. Really? Because they invite, and I don't know the exact number, we'll say 300 acts to come in and actually audition in front of the judges.
Wow.
They don't know who's going to do well. They don't know who's going to do poorly. They don't know what they have at that point. Everybody does their audition. The judges give their honest, you know, it's the yeses, it's the nos, whatever it is. That's all there. After all the auditions are done, they'll now look and see, okay, who do we give yeses to?
Narrow it down.
And then they narrow it down. Because, like, you know, if there was 20 comics and they all got all yeses, 20 comics aren't making the live show. That's just not how it works. Right. So there's no guarantee. That's why I said, you know, until it's on television, it didn't happen.
Right.
Like, even if I did amazingly and they were all about me, they could have just decided at the last second, actually, we have you know, because I was on the season with Cody Lee.
Oh,
you know?
Dude, I love Cody Lee.
Yeah, and it's like, well, like, I say this a little, you know, tongue in cheek, but it could be like, well, we already have 1 cripple, so we're not going to have 2 cripple, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we have different things, it's completely different disability. But, like, our stories are a little similar about, you know, who we are as people. So they might have decided, and well, 2 is too many.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you're out. There's no guarantees no matter what. So it was also very nervous because you don't even know when your episode airs until like a week before.
And what do they just like text you?
They basically text you or send you an email like, by the way, here's your promotional stuff. You can start posting this starting on Monday or whatever. Wow. And then you're like, okay, I guess I'm on television. Got it. Sweet. So you don't know. It's very nerve wracking during all that. Was the part that made me nervous. The performance was my reward. Yeah. That was the hard part.
Where was like when you found out you came in third, where was that showing? Like, where'd y'all film that at?
Oh, that was at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood. So where they did the
awesome.
Oscars.
So the real deal.
Yeah.
How was it on that stage?
Yeah, that theater. It was cool.
That's awesome.
It's a cool theater. It's like it holds like 3,000 something like that.
Historic. I mean, that's historic landmark. That's wild.
Yeah. It was. So I had lived in LA before.
Okay. Yeah. That's where your comedy started.
I
right?
started in LA. Yeah. So for me, a lot of that novelty of it being, you know, quote unquote Hollywood. You know, I never want to make it sound like, oh, it's real stupid. Who gives a shit? But like, I had already gone through that part years ago. So for me, it's just a place where I worked.
Right.
You know, that's what it was. And if you live in Southern California and you've been there for a little bit, where the Dolby Theater is, it's kind of like where the Walk of Fame is and all that stuff. And like, that doesn't have the best reputation there. It's kind of a dirty part of town. There's a lot of grifters on the street.
Really?
It's kind of, it's sort of gross.
Wow.
And but that's like when people from the Midwest, like I'm from, that's Hollywood.
Right.
You know, they show like,
yeah.
here's the, you know, the Man's Chinese Theater and here's the Walk of Fame, the Star.
Yeah.
Look at all this.
So the Stars is like, that's kind of like a rough
it's literally
area.
just right out there. Yeah. But a lot of it's in a rough area. Yeah. It's very strange. And it's very tourist trappy when you're there.
That makes sense.
And so like, I'm so wrapped up in what's happening with AGT, and part of my brain is, you know, like it was generally a super positive experience, but I'm very stressed out. And then part of my brain's like, oh, this is kind of a shitty part of town that I'm staying in, like this kind of stuff. And I'm sort of like a little down on it. And then my mom flies out because she's, you know, they film stuff with her and stuff, and she's there for the live shows. My mom had never been to California before all of this, and watching my mom be like, I found Marilyn Monroe's star. I was like, oh, that's who this is for. Yeah. It's not for jaded artists who are, I'm too good for this. Watching my mom, like,
did she take some selfies with it?
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah.
During the judge cuts, they interviewed her, and then, like, you know, she was really featured heavily in that. The judge cuts, when they did that, they filmed that at Universal, like on like sound stages and stuff. The coolest thing that she had ever done in her life to that point was when they filmed her interview. It was on the set of Desperate Housewives.
Oh, really?
It was like in one of the houses from there, which is kind of a neat thing. But that was like, my mom was like, I can't wait to tell everybody I was on the set of like that. That's was so funny. And like when you do this for a living, sometimes you can kind of not see the forest from the trees kind of thing. Because you're so like minute to minute, and like, oh, I need this person to book me. I need to get this spot. When you see my mom be like just so wide eyed, and like, my mom's from Mitchell, Indiana, a really tiny town in Indiana.
And she's never been out west.
Grew up poor. Yeah. So like, just like saying that, like that kind of helped ground me a lot for that situation.
You keep saying that, you know, that's changed your life being on AGT. What has changed? Like, what is the big thing that's changed in your life from that?
I can't even pinpoint one big thing. I'll kind of give you just like what has happened since then.
Yeah.
For me. So up until 2019, that's when I did it. You know, 6 months prior to that is when I quit my last day job.
That's awesome.
Because I had been, I'd been in comedy, 11, 12 years at that point, but it was, I always had to work a day job because, when you're trying to make it in some kind of entertainment like that, it's a very expensive hobby for a long time.
And I think too, like having a day job, being a comedian, a lot of the comedian stuff kind of happens late night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're having to work the next day. I mean, you're exhausted.
It's tough. It's a grind. Yeah. And you can't fully commit to either.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you have to pay the bills, and doing open mics do not pay the bills.
Right. But it's fun. And you're having a great time, you know what I mean?
But like, the amount of time, especially when I first started, I had to work such terrible jobs, and I'd be out until, 1, 2 in the morning, and have to be up at 5.
What was the worst job?
Oh gosh. I worked at Walmart. I worked at, because the thing is, and I don't even fault businesses like this, but any place that usually pays well does not care that, like, they don't want you to have dreams outside of that company, you know? Like,
they just want you to be.
So I had to work jobs, like, you know, because, like, and it's not even that the jobs were bad to me, but if I have to quit Walmart, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know, like, I'll fight, you know, they'll probably rehire me back in 6 months if I really need it. Like, they're not going to hold grudges.
They'll hire you now, man.
Exactly. You know, it's well, and I'm not trying to diminish anyone that works at Walmart, but that's just like,
right.
There's different types of jobs.
Oh,
you know? Like they don't care this, but, like, you know, one of my best jobs I ever had as far as day jobs go, I worked at Navy Federal Credit Union for the couple years I lived in Pensacola, Florida, and I worked at, like, the call center. It's an amazing job. The problem was, that's the job that people buy their houses with. They're not going to they weren't giving me time off so I could go to Tulsa, Oklahoma to work the loony bin. You know, they want you to be committed to there because so, like, that was where, like, the struggle was. It was like I had to quit that job because I couldn't do comedy because it's a career that I was now working, and it just, those don't mesh well. So trying to find that balance, but basically I was working at a call center job up in Indianapolis. And I kind of told myself, you know what? I'm going to give myself like 2 years. I'm going to finally quit. I'm going to do nothing but comedy.
Give it everything.
I'll give myself 2 years. All I can get through. If it doesn't work, it'll just be a fun thing that I do sometimes.
I always say, if you don't try, you don't know. You know
exactly.
What I mean?
And I'd always had this safety net. And I'm not necessarily recommending that people... Because a lot of times you have to have the self-awareness to know that you have a shot.
Right.
The amount of people who are like a year into like doing open mics who are like, I quit my job and I moved to LA. I'm like, you're a fucking moron. like you're not ready for that yet. Yeah. You need to know there's levels to this. But, like, I felt like I was talented enough, but I hadn't been able to commit to what, you know, to what the business
was that
needs.
Scary for you?
Very scary. Yeah, it was incredibly scary because, like, I was able to pay my bills because, like, you know, my younger brother, you know, he was my roommate, you know, so we shared a pretty cheap apartment. Like, we were able to keep the lights on, but basically, like, if a comedy weekend, you know, canceled, I might be asking him for some money,
right,
you know,
right,
to
right.
pay, you know, can I pay the bills in a couple of weeks? So I was just kind of like on that. That's when I was really sleeping in my car a lot because I couldn't afford hotels on my own and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, 6 months after that, I got I had the conversation where they were like, yeah, you're going to come out to LA and you're going to film the audition. The audition went fantastic. My wife hates when I tell the story because it makes her sound bad, but I promise you she doesn't sound as bad as the story makes it sound. Like, I'll explain. So my wife, we actually dated like 20 years ago when we were both in college.
Okay.
We were kind of long distance. We met online through random circumstances. That's a much longer story than we can do here. But we dated in college. We were both young and stupid, you know, and
hey, I wasn't the only one then, so I feel good.
Even me, who's clearly brilliant now. So it didn't really work out, but, like, she was kind of always my one that got away, and it took her a long time to get there, but I was kind of hers too.
That's cool.
She had got married in between, you know, all this kind of stuff. I did not ruin the marriage. I want to be very clear about that. But they were kind of, you know.
Oh, yeah.
they like, you know, it was kind of, you know, that just wasn't going to work out. That happened to time pretty well with, you know, she still lived in Southern California. That timed out pretty well with AGT. So kind of on a whim, when I found out I was getting an audition, I invited her.
That's cool.
To come. So if you go back and watch the clip from that show, she's the one that's sitting next to my mom.
Okay.
We weren't together at this point,
okay.
My wife and I, but, like, that was kind of the first time we had actually seen each other in person in like a decade.
Wow.
So, you know, I invited her to come out. Luckily, the audition went well.
Yeah.
And
because you wouldn't be together probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think we actually would, because, like, that's where it makes it look bad, because, like,
no,
like she's worried that, like, now people think she's a gold digger, but like how it basically works, like, why I think we connected. So, like, a big reason why it didn't work out the first time, I have lots of depression and self-esteem issues that I didn't always manifest in the best ways.
Yeah.
It's always, you know, and when you're in that state, like, and I never want to diminish anyone, because, like, depression's hard. I still deal with it right now.
For sure.
But you're also, like, until you learn to deal with your shit, whether that's therapy, whatever that is,
right.
Until you do that, you can't expect everyone to kiss your ass, and just, like, you have to take some responsibility too.
Yeah.
You want people to maybe use gentle hands, but, like, if you're just always depressed and you're making no signs to fix it, people don't want to be, for me, she didn't want to be my mother. No one's going to
be around you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
She didn't want to be my mother. Yeah. She wanted me to be a partner. And I basically needed her to be my mother at that point, and that just wasn't going to work.
Makes sense.
Why we kind of got together. It wasn't because because she has a good job. She makes good money. She doesn't need me financially. It's like the bullshit where people think Taylor Swift is using Travis Kelce for a $70,000 bonus. She's a billionaire. She don't need shit over there, But so she didn't care about that. But basically, she got to see me on stage. She got to see the culmination of all that hard work I'd done, not only just for comedy, but in my own confidence.
Right, and for you.
She got to see the end. She knew me back when, she was at my first comedy show ever. She knew me before, and she liked me then. Yeah. She's always that was never the problem.
What a story.
So for her to get to see that, so now, so then we got married when everything shut down for the pandemic. I moved from Indiana to California because her job is, that's where her pension and all that. I can tell dick jokes from the moon if I need to. It doesn't matter where I'm at. So I kind of moved out there. We got married. Now we have a 9-month-old son.
That's awesome.
And it's all, AGT basically opened, and you can go even further back than that, but that opened up all this stuff. The pandemic hurt my momentum a little bit. You can always complain about I wish I was this, that, but my life's awesome.
That's awesome.
I can't.
I love it.
And it's AGT was one of the huge catalysts for that.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you've had some super highs, and it sounds like you've had some super lows. So how do you not let the highs get too high and not let the lows get too low?
Someone gave me the advice they gave me was in reference to stand-up specifically, but I've utilized it for all of my life. Basically, when I was first starting, somebody told me, hey, no matter what happens at this show, you leave it here. So if you crush, the second you get in your car, you're over it. And if you bomb your ass off, the second you get in your car, it's over. And I've tried to utilize that in my life as well. Because, for comedy, basically what that means is if you crush and then now you're cocky, you're like, oh, I killed it. You can get humbled very quighly. Your next show could be...
I feel like each crowd would be different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And you could be in the same venue. It could be the same night, but just the second show.
Yeah.
I've had, club nights where the early show, I feel like I'm the greatest comedian that ever lived. And then after the second show, I'm like, I should maybe go back to college, become an accountant, maybe. Comedy's not for me.
Go back to the credit union.
Because you can get humped, it can change on you fast.
Man.
And to kind of keep yourself from, at least for me, to keep myself from going insane, I never wanted to think I was too good.
That's good.
Or I didn't want to think that oh man, I bombed a couple times, so I'm now the shittiest comic that
Staying
ever lived.
humble.
And that's kind of how I try to do life, because life can come at you fast,
Dude, hell yeah.
I even talk about, 2019 is the greatest year of my life, career-wise. I was making amazing money. That's awesome. Finally got all this recognition. I was touring everywhere. And then March 2020, the world shut down.
Yeah. How did I'm sure that affected
my work. I had a year of comedy canceled just basically within a week's time. It's hard to say the specifics because there's the way comedy pay where there's bonus structures and all that. I lost well over 6 figures of money in a week.
Wow.
And so it's life can come at you fast. I didn't do anything wrong. That was just the world happened. So I always try to remember that all of this is temporary.
Yeah.
So it's enjoy those moments when it's really good because it could be really bad, out of your control.
Man.
And when it's really bad, it's really bad, also enjoy the moment. Probably not the right way to say it because no one enjoys being depressed or whatever, but learn from that, kind of take that in, but realize, hey, something really cool could happen. I've went from a suicide attempt to now having my son.
That's awesome, dude.
And that wouldn't have,
Right.
So it's there's so much that can happen, and you just have to learn to wade those storms, both good and bad. Because it's going to be different.
I love it. So with your disability, I can't pronounce the word, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Okay. Right. I typed it in Google and I was like, how do you even pronounce this? So let's talk about it. What is that? What is it called?
See, I don't even know what word you're thinking about. That's how little I actually know about it. So I just have a congenital birth defect.
Okay.
So mine is actually apparently pretty unique because it's not any kind of predictable syndrome, you know, like, because there's certain stuff.
So you don't know, like,
not specific. We don't know the full reason why it happened, you know, because most people that have a limb difference, it's either a result of something, like it could be like alcohol fetal syndrome, you know, stuff like there was some kind of outside force that came in, or you know, it's most people that have a limb difference in the arms, especially, it usually manifests in one arm.
Yeah, that's what I was
from
thinking,
the elbow down, and then, you know, usually one normal arm, but then from the elbow down, there's usually some kind of like, well, this chromosome or this gene did this. As far as we know, when my mom was pregnant with me, she had the flu really bad and had to be hospitalized at one point. Wow. We think it might have had something to do with that.
That's crazy.
But we were also trailer park people, so it's not like we had a ton of money to go do without a test and figure. Yeah. It was more like, I came out, they, you know, they checked everything else out. There's no other issues as far as, like, you know, my all my organs are fine. Yeah. Like, there's nothing else. It's just this.
That's wild.
So once they kind of were like, okay, well, he's healthy otherwise, we just went, all right, we'll figure it out. So honestly, like, I don't know. Yeah. and it's weird that, like, it's such a big part of me, but the origin story, we don't know definitively.
So with that disability, like, you know, when you have two hands, you just naturally, like, pick up a ball or whatever. Do things come naturally with you whenever you were younger? You know what I mean? And it's like,
for the most part, it's hard to explain, because, like, I don't know otherwise. I've had this since
exactly.
birth, so I don't know. Like, if I suddenly woke up with your hands, life would be really weird for me. Like, I'd have to relearn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Humans are pretty adaptable.
Yeah.
And
which is crazy.
And as long as you're mentally able to make the attempt, because like, you know, I have friends who were, you know, war veterans who have, you know, had things happen where they lost limbs. It was harder for them to adjust because they remember what it used to be. You know, like they can kind of figure out, oh yeah, I used to have my leg, I used to have my arm, you know, whatever it is. I don't know any better. So I just figured things out. Like, when you're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to wear clothes, I'll figure out how to put on clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, like you figure it out. So I didn't have difficulty there. You know, to be a little bit vulnerable now, I've had a lot of struggles since becoming a dad, because I had sort of learned, you know, how to take care of myself. I know what I'm doing. I don't have any special things for my car. Like, I can travel by myself. I can figure things out. Stuff for being a parent, like the things you need for a baby, is not designed with me in mind. You know, so like my wife and I have had to buy very expensive strollers and very expensive car seats that I can do.
Car seats are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because some of them, like the one in her car, I physically can't do.
Wow.
Because it's just like, I can't hold the stuff in the right place and do this.
It's like you got to put like 5 clips together.
Yeah, like, and there's things like that just like,
I can't even do that.
So it's like, I've had a lot of frustration with that, because you know, like, it's hard to feel like I know intellectually he can't. He's not developed enough mentally to feel that someone's failed him, or you know, like he's still working on instincts for a lot of us. You know, he's 9 months, but like, it's hard for me not to feel like, you know, at a certain point, I don't want him to be like, well, can I have this, you know, this snack? And it's like, well, not right now, because your mom's not home and I physically can't open your snack.
Gotcha.
He's not going to fully understand that, like, oh, it's because of the disability. I'd like to give you this snack. He's going to be like, Dad's being mean and won't let me have this snack. So, like, I've been struggling a lot with that kind of stuff. And, like, it's a learning process, you know? I have stuff that I call them cripple days. Yeah. Where my hands just don't work the way my brain wants them to work. And that's super frustrating, you know? So it's like, and it's manifested a lot, because when it was just me, okay, whatever, I'll just go sit, I'll play a video game, I'll go read, you know, I can kind of, like, my son needs his diaper changed.
Yeah,
he doesn't care if my hands aren't working right now. He's hungry. I need to give him the bottle, you know? And so that's been a bit of a process, for sure.
I could definitely see that. I mean, it's a process being, you know, a person just like myself with normal hands and stuff. That's, you know, when I first had my child, I was like, how do I do this? So I could only imagine. But just the fact that you're learning, he's learning. I think like how it was when you were younger, you know, it's going to come naturally. I think it'll just come naturally for him.
Yeah. And I will say, like, for anyone who happens to be watching that might be in a similar situation, it is getting slightly easier.
That's good.
Because as he gets older, he can kind of help me with stuff. Like probably within the last month is the first time my shoulder has not felt like absolute death. Nobody tells you that babies are just dead fucking weight. You know, like
they're top heavy.
Yeah. People joke around about, oh, you're gonna change diapers and you're gonna do this, but like for that first like few months, like even if they're not like we had a big baby, our baby was 9 pounds 8 ounces. He was a hoss.
Yeah,
you know, but like even though like maybe under normal circumstances 10 pounds isn't quote unquote heavy, but when it's dead weight that can't move around by itself, you are basically a horse for your baby. You are a means of transportation, and they can't sit up by themselves. So like you have to hold them.
Yeah,
like holding a 10-pound baby trying to get to sleep.
Yeah, for
an hour was just destroy. And because of just how my disability is, I'm very right side heavy because that's where, that's where my strength is, where I can hold stuff.
Gotcha.
So I can't really, my wife can kind of switch arms and do whatever so she can even it out. I have to take the brunt in that one spot, and it was destroying me, man. Yeah. Like they don't tell you stuff like that.
Do y'all got like a rocker? You know what I mean? Like a rocking chair too?
Yeah.
I've learned that helps me, but I had the same problem with Leighton with my shoulder. I always carry her on this arm. I don't know what it is. And then I always put pressure on this foot for some reason.
Yeah.
And I always had the shoulder problem, but
it tweaks your body in a weird way. And people don't like, I never remember anyone saying like
lower back too.
Like oh yeah, just lift with your leg. Like no one tells you that. They're just like, oh, you're gonna love snuggling with your baby, and I do. Yeah. But I'm like, you're a big fucking dude, man. You with your giant ass head, you're killing me right now.
Man, that's crazy. Well, I would tell you, it may get a little easier as they get older, but I got a 2-year-old and she's like, hold me. And I was just like, now you're even more heavy, So it's like, man, but
let him know he can support himself a little bit more now. So it's actually, he still likes to be held, but he's taking the pressure off because he can also like,
Is he crawling now?
Oh man, dude.
Everywhere?
Like that's the wildest thing too about like just watching a human develop, especially at that age, because all of it happens so fast.
Yeah.
You have these moments in your head where you're like, I think I have a broken, stupid one. He's not doing he's never going to figure this out. Like he can't, he hated tummy time for the longest time. He couldn't figure it. I'm just like, man, he's not.
I mean, who likes to be just laying on their belly anyways?
But like, then the problem is it's one of those like social media type things.
Yeah.
Even if it's not exactly social media, everyone brags about like, oh, my kid knew how to talk at this. And not everyone's kid could walk at 6 months old. You're a fucking liar. You stop it.
Yeah.
But like you get that in your head, you're like, because like my older brother has a 2-year-old, and my niece was born a month before Owen was. So like I kind of get this like heads up, like be like, well, she started crawling, and I look at my son, I'm like, you ain't doing shit.
Crawl.
So, and all babies develop at different rates.
Yeah.
Like I know that inside, but like you can't help but have this pressure of like. So like he was like starting to barely scoot a little bit, but I'm like, man, I don't know if he'll ever crawl. And then literally the next day,
he was gone.
Dude's a boom, he figured it out fast. And I'm like, oh shit, So it comes at you fast. So
man, we did the same thing with Leighton walking. So mom would come over and she'd be like, Leighton ain't walking yet. And I'm like, no, she's kind of standing up. She'll take a step or two. But dude, once she started, it was just like you said, boom, she's gone. She's trying to climb upstairs, she's climbing on the counter, trying to elbow drop off the sofa. It's like, man, and it's crazy how fast they develop, and then they learn so much just by watching. So you gotta watch what you say.
Yeah, well, I want him to. I mean, like I said, I'm an old trailer park kid. He's gonna have a good vocabulary. I'll tell you that much already.
Yeah, you said your vocabulary when you was younger was all 4-letter words.
Yeah, a lot of it. It's just. I mean, it's just your circumstance. Yeah, that turned out all right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about hecklers before we go. So, like, how do you deal with that? And then, as far as writing your skits and bits, like, let's do skits and bits first.
Okay.
And then we'll run into...
That's the easier one to answer. I am a self-proclaimed lazy writer. So what I'm going to tell you what I do, it's not the only way to do it. There's such a wide... Comedy is such a subjective thing, and there's so many ways to attack it that anyone who's trying to tell you, like, this is how you do it, like, no, that's how they do it. They're trying to sell you some bullshit. Yeah, because so a lot of people I know, the way they write, they're very meticulous. So like they'll spend, I spend 2 hours a day, and I sit down, at my computer or with a notebook and a pen, and I'll write 30 pages of jokes, and then later on I'll go edit and I'll find what's good in there and that process. They're very meticulous. It's very. That has never worked for me. I have never gotten one joke to work that I'm happy with that I sat down and was like, it's time to write comedy jokes. What I do, why I call it lazy, is I just try to, it's part of having that self-awareness I've talked about a few times during this.
Yeah.
I just try to pay attention. I keep my eyes open, my ears open, and when it doesn't kill me, I keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. And
if something happens, I might have not written a new bit in 2 months, and I'm starting to be like, man, nothing's happened. Then this happens, and now I have 15 minutes because this crazy thing happens. I just paid attention, and this happened. So,
is it based off a lot of true events?
Almost all of it's true.
That's
events.
Awesome,
right? Because for me,
because you never know with comedy. You know what I mean? It's like, are they telling a real story, or are they mixing it up a little bit?
For me, almost all stories, and I'll tell you, in most cases, anyone that tells a joke, it's the real thing.
Really?
Turned up to 11.
Okay.
Because if I tell you the actual thing that happened, like I'll tell stories about like, well, here's when I yelled at this person who said this stupid thing at me. That all happened in my head because I'm not a sociopath who yells at people in public, But like, that's not interesting to be like, well, actually, I didn't. I just thought that. No, but like that muddles everything. It's the reason that like if you watch a comedy show, everybody's had the most interesting last week.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell jokes like, the other day this happened. No, that happened 10 years ago.
Right.
But like getting into that mess that mushes things up too much. So a lot of times like I'll tell the joke because like right now, a big part of my hour, and this is what I'm talking about, you just pay attention, life happens to you, you talk about it. Most of my hour is about having a son. That happened 9 months ago. Yeah. It's like, I didn't write that 10 years ago and then like, oh, this is made up. Like, no, I'm just talking. For me, because it's easier to be like, I have a son? Cool. Yeah. This is actually happening. I'll just talk about this. Yeah. And then you punch it up and you do whatever. Like, I'm telling ridiculous jokes about like, my son's a dick and he brags about having hands. He's trying on gloves. like obviously that's not real, but like it's based in like it's much easier to write that than like, people like cats. What's funny about cats? Like that never worked for me. Yeah. Because I'm not connected to that in a real way. I love my son. I'm very much in the shit right now. That's awesome. So if I just talk about what's actually happening to me,
it's easy.
When I was on AGT, I talked about being on AGT. I had jokes about that, When I started touring, I had jokes about touring because now I get to do this, Like awesome. now people recognize me in public and they say this weird thing, like I just pay attention to that and I'm like, oh, that's cool that, I had an experience a couple weeks ago where my friend who works at Southwest, she helped me have them hold the flight for me because I have a disability because I didn't want to miss my flight. And then when I got there, I felt I had to act extra disabled because they held an entire flight for me, even though in reality, I don't have to, I travel fine.
It's not just the hands.
It's like, but I had to be like, like I had to like, because there was 100 and some other people who had to wait for me to get on the plane. So I felt this weird, like, and that just happened organically because that was an actual thing that happened. Oh my God, that's so funny. I'm not going to make up that story because I'm not that creative. I just pay attention to life and then make just a little
twist.
Bit. Yeah.
I guess we do the same thing, and I guess I'm overthinking it. I just think that it may take much effort, but just like you do, you pay attention to what's going on. We do the same thing. I watch the kids, and then we may tweak a little thing of what they say that sounds a little bit better, turn it up to 11. Yep. But yeah, we do the same thing. So I guess
my real actual life is boring as hell, but people don't want to hear that. Like. Do my wife and I have a great time and we have a fun family? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's not like my wife hates this so much because like my wife doesn't know me as like AGT's Ryan Niemiller. That guy's crazy. I'm her husband, who just like, and we get along like, so like people like, especially like she's an elementary school teacher. Everyone that like, all their husbands or, they're accountants or like whatever it might be, perfectly fine jobs, but maybe not the sexiest kind of, I do this cool thing that I'm on TV sometimes and do this. Like, I bet you just laugh all the time. My wife's like, no, that would be insufferable. Like, imagine if I was just running, like, just run bits on your wife all day. Just do nothing but tell jokes. She would murder you in your sleep, and no jury would convict her.
100%.
Like no, it's like we're pretty boring. We just have a normal, life, and we have fun. Yeah. Like we make each other laugh, but in the way that couples make each other laugh. It's not like, did you hear this about Kat? Like she would murder me.
Yeah.
And be right to do so.
That's good. So dealing with hecklers though, like is that ever just a pain in the butt? You know what I mean?
It's 100% a pain in the butt.
Does it mess the whole skit up 90% of the time?
Usually.
Throw you off?
It's such a hard thing to explain because like it's an occupational hazard.
Yeah.
So like it's going to happen because most comedy shows, there is alcohol involved as well. And comedy's subjective, so not everyone's going to like you, even if they're not drunk. They're just, some people are just assholes, and that's what it is. And sometimes, and there's such degrees of hecklers. The easiest hecklers to deal with are the people who just hate you. If someone says you suck, well, you're not buying merch. You're not coming back to a show. Fucking kill yourself. I don't get, you know, like, you can, like there's nothing off limits to say to someone like that. The hardest hecklers to deal with are those that love you. You know, the people who are like, you know, I'll be in the middle of a joke and they're like, we love you. Or they're trying to comment. And I'm like, I appreciate that you do that. I'm doing a thing here. You need to shut up.
Yeah.
But you might buy a t-shirt after. Yeah, so like, you don't want to be too mean. So you got to like work that.
Yeah. You got to pet them while you talk to them, you know?
I don't want to speak universally because every comic's different. But the majority of at least the comics I know, you learn to deal with hecklers because it's going to happen whether you like it to or not. We want to tell the jokes that we've worked really hard on. Yeah. Can I make a situation with a heckler funny? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I ever want to do it? No.
I heard one you were doing, it was something about some guy hollered something and you were like, I guess you said something about marrying his mom or something.
I don't know. It's like, because like I don't remember a lot of those because like that's not what I'm trying to do. I didn't come up on stage hoping this guy says this or does that. I work hard, you know, like I talk about being lazy writing, but like I want to tell my stories. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about my son. I don't want to talk to you and I'm glad you're here.
And you have a time limit, you know what I mean?
Like it's like, oh, I wanted to work on this, but I guess I have to deal with you because you're a bridesmaid. You know, it's a bachelorette party, and you think the night's all about you. So I got to shut you up so that this can, like, can I make it funny? Yes, and like they can be enjoyable moments that like I have fun doing, but like I never want to deal with it. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it. And what's made things harder with just how comedy has sort of shifted right now. Everything is very social media based, and you have to get content out. Yeah. And I need to get better at it. It's been hard with my son. That's an excuse, I know, but like,
you got a 9-month-old. I mean,
tiring, you know, it's tiring. But you have to get these content out. But like, if you're also wanting to release like, you know, a special, I don't want to put the jokes up for free on Instagram if I'm potentially if I'm working on my hour to make a special. Yeah. So you have to have some content out. So you start putting like, well, I did this crowd work. It was just unique to this moment. So I'm going to, you know, here was me talking to this heckler and I got them and here's this clip. And it does really well. And now all comics are doing that. Yeah. And they're getting millions of views. So now people who are on TikTok and Instagram watching that, they see those clips and they were like, oh man, that was really funny when that guy yelled that and then he did this. So I'm going to I'm going to yell a thing. So now like I don't know Matt Rife. I don't know him personally, so I don't want to say anything like that. But like he came out like he got huge like on TikTok, basically
talking shit
and doing that, which is, you know, I'm not mad at that. Again, I don't know him. I will never fault the comic for, you know, he's selling out theaters. Yeah. Who the fuck am I to tell him he's doing it wrong? You know? But like he then was trying to do like an actual, you know, like actual hour where he tells his jokes. Right. But people just keep yelling shit at him and he's getting mad about it. And I'll be like, you got famous doing that thing. You don't get, you know, the smoke's out of the, you know, the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in now. So you have to like,
that's going to be hard.
It's going to be a slow pivot. And I have empathy for it. I'm like, I want to tell my jokes too, but you're making probably 7 figures now being the guy who talks shit to these bitches who are doing, you know, whatever. You can't get mad at the bitches when they're now wanting to be a part of it. Like it's just, so, I love it. But it makes it tough because then like, because I'm not that guy. My stand up, if you let me do my thing, I'll have a little exchange with you if you won't shut up. Right. But I want to tell my stories and then go home. But now, oh, whoa, Matt Rife did this, so I'm going to come to Ryan's show and do it. Yeah. I don't want that. Yeah. And I've never asked for that. But now I have to deal with it because that's what TikTok is now. Yep. It's this whole thing. So the thing I will always tell everybody with comedy, it's like, you can hate it, but if that's how things have moved, you need to evolve or you're going to be left behind. Yeah. You know, there's still a lot of, you know, comics who are huge in the 80s and 90s who are trying to do the same thing, who don't understand why they don't get booked anymore. And it's like, I feel for you, but shit changes.
Innovation, baby.
Yeah, you gotta do. You can hate it.
Yep.
I hate TikTok. I gotta figure it out though, because that's what the business is, you know.
Yep, exactly, man. Well, I appreciate you coming today. I know you got a show coming up soon, and anything you want to holler out social wise? Any events you got coming out?
Sure. I'll give the quick spiel. Cripplethreat.com is the website. I always have my tour schedule up there. Admittedly, it's a little lighter because I am stay-at-home dad right now.
Enjoy that for real, honestly.
And I definitely am.
Yeah.
I get a little stir crazy because like dick jokes is what I do. I want to go do it.
You can tell him to the 9-month-old. What's the worst that can happen?
He laughs at everything I do. It's awesome. So my mother-in-law is also a teacher. She's retiring at the end of this year, though, the school year. Yeah. So I'll be able to get on the road a little bit more. So Don't be worried if my calendar looks light. It's by design. So my son doesn't, die. It's cripplethreat.com. All my social media is Cripple Threat 8. The number 8. There's 7 before me, but I've risen to power. That's what it is. So Cripple Threat 8. You mentioned at the very, very beginning, I do have my own podcast. I do it with a couple buddies of mine. Johnny LaQuasto, who I've known since a month after I started comedy. He's a ring announcer for wrestling. He was with WWE for a little bit. She's a good friend of mine. And then my buddy Brent Terhune, who's out of Indianapolis. A lot of people know him as the redneck y'all love to hate.
Okay.
So he kind of does, they're sort of parody videos, but he plays them very serious of being like the guy who do the truck rants.
Yeah.
But like, he is kind of making fun of the people. So yeah, he's big red beard, you know who he is, even if you don't know the name. But it's called The Cafeteria. We release an episode every Friday. Do there. I had a special release last year. That was my first official special. It's on Amazon Prime, or if you're cheap and you don't mind ads, it's on Tubi for free.
Oh, we got Tubi?
Yeah, it's for free. You just got to deal with those ads. It's called Unarmed and Dangerous. It's not what I'm doing on the road now. It's kind of a culmination of the first 15 years or so of my career.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of the stuff I was very proud of, but I was ready to retire. So now it's in that form now, not there. And then just, social media is the best way to get a hold of me. It's me that handles all my social media. I think that's how we got in touch.
Yeah.
It's out there. Yeah. So it's how it works. So just follow me and then just support live comedy in general.
That's
like
awesome,
even if it's not me, like let us, I don't want to
It's an art, dude.
I don't want to only do TikTok, man. Like come live shows are so much more fun for me. So go see a live show.
Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. Well, just send me all those links and stuff. That way I can get it in the description for everybody.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it is tradition. Before we go, we always play paper, rock, scissors with our guest.
Okay.
So today, Ryan, paper, rock, scissors.
Here we go.
You ready, baby?
Here we go.
Paper, rock, scissors, shoot. Is that scissors?
It's always scissors, Daddy.
Damn.
I appreciate you,
buddy. I love you, man. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all bell notifications. That way you know every single time we post a little boring podcast. Ryan, thanks for coming, buddy.
This was boring? I thought we had a good time.
See you guys.